Welcome. This is David Winstead, and this is the program In the Know on Montgomery Municipal Cable. Thank you for joining us. We have a great pleasure this morning having our Vice President of the Council and Council Member, Will Jawando, who is at large, correct? Yes. So maybe as a starting point, I know that you're into your second term, but as a starting point, how do you cover the county? I mean, how do you actually, such a diverse county from employment, from residency, from business. So what are the challenges as an at-large member versus just a district member?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, good to be with you. Thanks for having me. We're a big county, 500 square miles, 1.1 million plus people, every type of community, hundreds of languages spoken. We're super diverse, as you know. 4 of the top 10 most diverse cities in the country are in Montgomery County: Gaithersburg, Germantown, Rockville, and Silver Spring. It brings with it a lot of great food, but also, to your point, we have all the different type of typographies too. We have rural, urban, suburban, and everything in between. So it takes a lot of work to get to every part of the county. We work really hard at it. I think the number one job as from an elected official, my job is to be responsive and to connect with residents. So each of my staff members has an area of the county they cover. They're responsible for knowing what events and community groups are going on. We try to be very intentional about using my time effectively in getting to the different parts of the county. When I was head of I chair the education committee, which oversees the libraries. There's 22 of them across the county. I do listening sessions at each of those to try to get around. So there's a lot of things we do. It's a work in progress because we're so big, but it's a lot of fun too, because you really get to appreciate all the different things that are going on here.
Oh, that's great. It gives you a great perspective for the large issues too,
yes,
right?
Absolutely.
Because you have more people to listen to and responsible to represent a larger group. So, Will, I have had some exposure to the initiatives, the bill you put in a couple years ago now, and then the current bill that's going up for hearing. And obviously, affordable housing's a major issue. You look at the numbers, and it's the cost of housing is going up 6%, and the cost of waging go up 1%. The average home price is almost $500,000 for a townhouse, right? And those are high costs for Montgomery County residents and people that want to come and live here. What are your thoughts sort of about where you started and where current things are, and what impacts does it have for Montgomery County neighborhoods largely? Yeah,
it's a big issue. I mean, when you poll residents, there's a poll done earlier this year, what's your number one issue? People say housing and the cost of housing. And it's across any racial, ethnic group, age. You imagine you're a young couple trying to move here, you want to buy a house, it's prohibitive. You're a senior citizen wanting to stay here, that can be prohibitive. Property tax cost, or you're trying to downsize, what would you buy? So all across, and I think there's opportunity in that, but there's also a big challenge. Everyone's thinking about it. So obviously us as elected officials, okay, what are you doing to help us with this? And this is not unique to Maryland, not unique to Montgomery County. This is happening across the country. New York Times article out today, interest rates are at 6.5%. Even though there's more houses on the market, people aren't buying them because it's too expensive. So it's a serious challenge. So the question is, what do you do in that environment? Zoning and changing zoning and looking at transit-oriented development, which we have been doing. I've been on the housing committee for 7 years now, is a part of the solution for sure, but it's not a panacea. And because we are so different in how we're laid out here, the topography, the geography of our communities, you really have to look at it, I think, in a master plan neighborhood by neighborhood way of what makes the most sense. What makes sense in Clarksburg might not make sense in Chevy Chase. And that's okay, but we got to look at it that way. So I do think transit hubs, when I introduced more housing for more people a few years ago, 5-6 years ago now, it had 2 components. Rent stabilization near transit for our renters. 40% of the county just about rents now, and that's a big change. And those are their homes, and they're going to stay there because of the cost of housing. And some of them will move out, but a lot of people are going to continue to rent. And then for the 60% that are homeowners and those who want to come in, how do you create different types of housing at different price points? Not just big mansions, not just multifamily apartments? How do you have a range? And that's what this missing middle is about. I do think it makes sense to, our proposal was to do it within a half mile of metro stations where you're going to get the most likelihood that people are going to walk or use transit, and start there and then see how it goes. The proposal that came out from planning was much broader than that. Now the proposal we're considering is a corridors-based approach, which I'm not as a big fan of, because I don't think it doesn't necessarily focus it in on transit, but it also has the potential to. But
a lot of the corridors that that have been defined by this bill do lead into major transit.
Yes.
I mean, they do serve.
Some do.
In terms of access.
Some do.
Yeah.
Many of them do.
Yeah.
The thing that I think is the issue is the people who live on these corridors. A lot of them are low-income renters. A lot of them are homeowners who are, those houses cost less. So you could be displacing people that are already in affordable housing and putting up luxury type of housing.
Right.
I also don't think it's going to solve our problem. Will it help in some areas? With some areas, can you do it? Sure, absolutely. Right. We have to look at the aggregation of lots. People are concerned about that. We have to look at the infrastructure. Can the schools, can the water, can the roads handle it in a way? Right. And I think those are all things we're going to look at.
Interesting. Let me ask you this question. With the nodal points that were your primary focus, and with the reality of some single-family neighborhoods that would be near those locations, is there more of an opportunity of looking to redevelop commercial properties for affordable housing?
Yeah.
Isn't there maybe more incentive and ability of the county to incentivize market rate, below market rate affordable housing in those areas versus in communities where land costs are so high that you still don't help the problem, if you will?
Right. I think we have to have an all hands on deck approach here. And public land, so like parking lots that we owned,
right,
or land that we can take some of the costs down,
right,
because we have to develop, I think, is a big thing that we've been trying to focus on. Areas near metro and other public transit. But yes, office buildings, absolutely. I think we've seen some redevelopments occur naturally because of the change in the office market.
Right.
There's a bill that was debated to give a 20-year tax abatement to convert office to residential. I thought that was a little too much, and I offered some amendments. It changed slightly, but I did think the idea of incentivizing if office buildings truly were not being used to convert to housing is a good idea, and we should do that in some part. There's also areas where people are asking for amenities. We're going to do the first ever tax increment financing proposal in Montgomery County in White Oak, where it's going to build 5,000 units off of 29 and as part of that life science right near FDA, grocery stores, amenities, other shops. And it's an area where people have been asking for that. So we also have areas of the county where you need to develop more and people are asking for more. And I do think those are going to be the higher leverage strategies. We also created something called the Housing Preservation Fund.
I saw that. I was going to ask you about that.
And Housing Production Fund.
Yeah.
So there, you remove some of the speculation out of the market. So we've created a revolving loan fund using county dollars and our GO bonds to seed $100 million that our HOC can use to build affordable housing. And we only need a 5% return to replenish the fund, as opposed to like 20%, which private equity is going to need.
Right.
So you can bring the costs down. And so I think we need to be investing in more strategy like that.
So we'll take a break in about a minute, but let me ask you, could you kind of tell our residents and listeners sort of what to look for on this subject over the next month? I know there's a hearing later this month and then in July. And what's the process going forward so they can stay involved?
Yeah, so on the ZTA that you're talking about, 2502, we've had one hearing in the Planning, Housing, and Parks Committee, which I sit on, which has jurisdiction. There will be two more scheduled in July through the end of July to keep continuing work on this. Assuming that we get through it, that will then move to full council in some form. And then that discussion will probably happen in September. And I suspect that some version of this has the potential to be discussed and or passed in the September-October timeframe. So if folks are interested in following it, you can go to montgomerycountymd.gov and click on County Council, find meetings, and the schedule for the July meetings should be up in the next couple of weeks. And folks can always write in. You know, people are still writing into us and calling in and telling us what they think. But that's the basic process. Okay. I think we'll be considering it in committee for the next month or so. We usually break in August, and then it should come. There maybe there's another committee in September, or if it's passed through, it'll move to full council. And I suspect this fall something will be passed.
Right. Well, Will, thanks for that update. And we're going to take a quick break. This is the program In the Know, and we have our Vice President of the Montgomery County Council, Will Jawando, with us. And thank you for contributing. We'll be back with a couple other issues, if that would be all right.
Sounds good.
Great. Thank you.
Some people judge a book by its cover, and if you're not what people are looking for, you're kind of like a reject.
At school, it feels like everyone's staring at me, and I'm just kind of not really a person.
Sometimes I can't believe that you could be proud of me if I'm not proud of myself.
It just was hard today. Nobody was listening to me.
Think of our best times together. Let's do more of that.
You know, try to understand me more, and I'll try to do the same.
Listening is a form of love. Find ways to support your kids at sounditouttogether.org.
Hello, this is David Winstead, and this is the program In the Know, and we have our Vice President of the Montgomery County Council, Will Jawando, at-large member of the County Council, with us. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.
Will, we're looking at the county as it's been really for quite some time. We're we have some wonderful transit options. You know, I obviously have the Red Line, and we're going to have the Purple Line opening. But we're still somewhat choked by the reality of congestion. And do you think the county is looking in a balanced way of the need for mobility between improvements on the highway, capacity HOV lanes, versus existing transit or light rail? What are your thoughts there?
Similar to the housing issue, there's no one solution. I think you have to do a lot of things. Certainly increasing ridership, reliability, and availability of transit is a strategy. Even if you go from 10% usage to 15% usage, that would have a huge impact on less cars on the road, more multimodal types of transit. If you make it safer for walkers and bikers and connect, build more complete communities that have jobs and amenities nearby where you can reduce trips, that'll help in some way. But you also have to make sure, and I talked about this a lot at an event recently. I'm running for county executive, and I mentioned this in this context, that I want to fix the roads. I want to fix the roads we do have. Potholes, bumps. I think Montgomery County, having done 7 budgets, the fund where we tend to go where we're looking for money is the resurfacing fund. And just how quickly you can get through on existing roads without having damage.
To your point, preservation of the system is always the highest call. In Maryland, with the Consolidated Transportation Fund, the secretary, presents a budget with the governor, but the top priority is maintaining the systems, both road, transit, port, airport. So you're absolutely right there. I would say, because I candidly think there's huge improvement potential still in Montgomery County, is a coordination of traffic signaling.
Absolutely.
And just the gains that can be had by improving the coordination and the linking between traffic flows and traffic lights. It really, there's a huge potential there.
100%, and that's what focusing on those basics. And of course, we need to build some additional roadways. When we had the big debate, and still having it around 495, 270, I was not in favor of the expansion of the governor's plan around, former Governor Hogan, around 495. But I was in favor of that additional lane on 270 that could be reversible based on rush hour. There is already right-of-way there. There's a need. That's a big choke point between Frederick and here, and in upper Montgomery County, Germantown going up. And so I was in favor of that. I think in some limited capacities, you should build a road like that. I do think the Purple Line will help. It's obviously had a lot of funding issues. The P3 fell apart, but now we're back on track.
Right. Yeah.
And it will really dramatically shorten that time to get from Bethesda to New Carrollton or to eastern Montgomery County to western Montgomery County, just looking at our 8 stops.
Right.
It'll take what is currently a 2.5-hour bus ride down to 30 minutes. Yeah. And that's going to be big from equity reasons and we're getting where jobs are. Right. I do think it will, you know, if you're someone who lives in Burtonsville or Briggs Cheney and cleans buildings in Chevy Chase or Bethesda, that trip for you is going to go down. And your kids can do internships or whatever. So I do think there are other important reasons to do it. But as I was saying, you got to do all those things. Let's maintain what we have, build in some senses, make sure that we are focusing on where we grow and build around transit hubs. The previous conversations connected to that. If someone can get to their grocery store, to their local cleaner and their, some recreation without having to necessarily get in the car, that's going to help. So all of these things taken together, as well as signal timing, moving where our bus stops are, making the roads better, you're going to have to do all of those things. I think that's how you get marginal and better progress on congestion. I don't believe we are a car-based community right now, and so I do think we need to get increased complete streets so that we can move to other modes. But we're always going to have roads that are reliable, and so that's going to need to be a part of it. So,
Will, moving on just to and finishing up here, I just wanted to ask about, just because I'm not monitoring Montgomery County Council as I used to, but this whole issue of Maryland competitiveness in Montgomery County. You know, the Comptroller Learman did a report that was somewhat shocking. You know, a couple years ago, she did an economic appraisal that really showed that although most jurisdictions and states have recovered from COVID, that Maryland was stuck right where they were, that there's really been no relative growth in Maryland's economy. And so what's your sense of, you know, how is you as a council member and your candidate for the executive role, how is it you can deal with that Montgomery County competitiveness issue about keeping and growing the jobs here if you can convince business that the cost of doing business here is better or competitive? Certainly the schools are better here in Montgomery County than elsewhere. So I was just curious, in a sort of a final question, so what's your sense of that challenge?
Yeah, and I think I'll start where you ended. I'm the chair of the Education Committee, 160,000 students, 200 schools, oversight over MCPS, but also Montgomery College, University of Shady Grove, where you can get a degree from 9 universities at one spot there in Shady Grove. We have to continue to invest in that pipeline. An investment in MCPS and in Montgomery College and in USG is going to have a multiple time fold investment here. In the case of Montgomery College and USG, we're literally we're working with employers and training students to take the jobs right away. In cybersecurity, we just launched I was just at Montgomery College, we launched a cyber range where that's a huge industry for us here, where you have students learning how to defend against cyber attacks, whether it be against a municipality or a government or a business. We are the 3rd largest life science hub in the country, and a lot of that's in Upper Montgomery County, but we also are big the hospitality. We're the home to Marriott and Choice Hotels and others. So I think part of it's playing to your strengths, telling the story. We have a company in United Therapeutics in downtown Silver Spring, which is literally already taking organs from animals, using their own tissue to build and to grow new organs for that animal. So that's in the next 10 years, God forbid one of us needs an organ, they're going to be able to take our tissue and grow it there at a facility in downtown Silver Spring. So I think we have to tell the story of what is happening here. We have a company right on the edge of curing AIDS with some really proven technology, therapies. So I think we have to play to our strengths. We have to invest in it. I was just with the governor at North Bethesda Metro, where there's going to be a joint mixed-use development for an Institute for Health Computing, where you have the University of Maryland partnering with development and businesses to use the great health data to solve some of the health challenges we have using AI. So I think there's a lot good going on. We have to continue to invest in those, in the education system, in the transportation system, in housing, to be hospitable, because we are a highly educated community. We have great amenities like parks and schools. And so we got to play to our strengths. We're never going to be the one that says we're going to, you know, it didn't work with Amazon. We had the most expensive package that offered, but they didn't come here, in part because they wanted to see more on the education and training side. So we have to continue to do that. And I do think we have to streamline processes. You know, we have 35,000 small businesses. 80% of our businesses are less than 15 people in Montgomery County. How do we support them to grow to medium? You know, how do we take the business that's 5 and take it to 15 or 20? That matters at scale too. And that's about regulatory processes being even. It's about things like our MOVE grant, where we give you a grant to move here if you move from another jurisdiction. It's about making sure our $1 billion in procurement is open and accessible to new and emerging companies. So I think it's a big business strategy, growing and playing to our strengths, including our federal labs and things, and making sure that we're leveraging that in the way that makes sense. Obviously right now we're trying to make sure folks keep their jobs at NIH and FDA and NIST, but assuming we will get through this time, that's a part of the strategy. So I remain very bullish and optimistic about our fundamentals here. I do think we need to do some things better, but I'm very excited about where we are and where we can go.
Well, that's great. Well, I really appreciate it, and obviously all the things you've said, but continuing to focus on that cost of business and, you know, how long does it take through planning to get new housing approved? How long does it take to get permits for siting a business, that kind of thing as well. But I really appreciate you taking the time. We've covered some interesting things, a couple topics that are very important right now. We thank you for sharing your thoughts and also for your leadership.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Will.